And so the Great White Hope pardoned you, Donald
That
Trump.
him, the racist.
I know.
Pardon an old, poor little black woman like me so I can reclaim my life and start over again. Not only did he give me a full and unconditional pardon, but he also made it illegal for them to chain women to the bed during childbirth. And then he passed the First Step Act. And then I walked in a list of 100 names of people that needed to be freed, and he freed several of those people before he left office. And these people are trying to convince me that I'm supposed to vote for the black woman who locked everybody up instead of the white man who freed everybody.
What a mess.
A mess.
When they call Donald Trump a racist, what do you think about that?
I feel like that's the kind of racism we need.
Yeah.
For this man who they claim is such a racist, who not only gave me a fresh start, gave Kwame Kilpatrick a fresh start, gave Alice Marie Johnson a fresh start, you know, pardoned Kodak Black, Lil Wayne, housed Jennifer Hudson, you know, when her family was murdered, went to court with Michael Jackson every single day, gave $1 million to Jesse Jackson to start the Rainbow Push Coalition, and I don't see him, you know, showing up to the DNC in Chicago with an abortion Hot Wheels bus offering black women abortion. So if I have to deal with racism, give me the racism that's gonna let out of jail.
That's right. What the?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cultural War. This is a very explosive interview. Here, Jesse Lee Peterson is interviewing Angela Stanton-King, who happens to be the goddaughter of Martin Luther King's niece. The very one, you know, the very popular Martin Luther King. She talked about how Donald Trump changed her life, how Donald Trump granted her and 100 persons pardon, actually. Her people like Lil Wayne and so many celebrities were granted pardon by Donald Trump. She talks about how Donald Trump is not a racist as people want to call him or want to tag him a racist. She said so many glowing things about Donald Trump, and she also talked about her NGO, her life. She was in prison several times and she came out and turned things around. Great interview, guys. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. Also, I'll be dropping the full link of the video somewhere in the description. So if you want to watch the full video, knock yourself off. Let's get straight into it.
Angela Stanton-King. And she is an author, TV personality, and the founder of the nonprofit organization Auntie Angie's House. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I
appreciate you coming.
It's a pleasure.
So, are you as tough as you seem to be on those shows I've seen you on?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what made you tough?
Just my life. I just grew up, you know, in circumstances where you had to be tough. You know, you had to fight in order to survive. And, you know, then I ended up, you know, spending some time in prison. And you got to be tough in order to survive prison. And then you get released from prison and you got chains on you that aren't made of metal, and you got to be tough when you get released from prison. And then you're a mom and you got to raise kids. You got to be tough, okay? To be an American, you got to be tough, okay? So I'm just tough.
And so you grew up like fighting and stuff like that in school and all that?
I was a very combative child that I had at an early age, and I wrote about all of this in my not that book, but my first book, Lives of a Real Housewife, which made me a national best-selling author. I wrote about some of the sexual abuse I had endured as a child by a family member. And, you know, I think back then that's kind of during those times when, you know, they swept everything up under the rug, you know, for the sake of kinship and family. And so I think some of that inner suffering contributed to making me this warrior that I am today.
And so you were angry growing up. You grew up angry because of those things that happened and other things?
I think I wouldn't use the word angry, but I'll accept it.
And why wouldn't you use the word angry?
Because I don't know if it was just angry or just being a victim of circumstance or a product of your environment.
Oh, I see. And so did you grow up, did you have a father and mother in the home?
Not in the home, but I did have a father and a mother. They were separated.
And were you close to your father or your mother?
When I saw him, I lived with my mother for most of my life, but I did spend quite a lot of time with my father in my early years, on the weekends, summer vacation, things like that.
Nice. Mm-hmm. And why, if you can say, why were you in prison? Did you ever, first of all, let me ask, Like when you were being all tough in high school and all that, did you imagine you would go to prison one day?
Of course not. I mean, you know, we all get asked that question when we're kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I don't know anybody that says, I want to go to prison.
Yeah,
okay?
I want to be an inmate one day.
Right. There are things that happen that put you, you know, we talk about this path to prison. There are things that happen during life that can put you on a path to prison. And I definitely believe, and I explain this, you know, in Lives of a Real Housewife, that the sexual abuse that I endured definitely contributed to the lifestyle that I lived, which eventually led me to prison. And I take full responsibility for my actions, and I'm reformed now.
Amazing.
Yes.
And so you had a baby in prison.
I did. I went to prison for a nonviolent crime. It was called title fraud and conspiracy. And while in prison, I learned that I was pregnant. And of course, I was pressured every single day to get an abortion because if you're in prison, you're a ward of the state. So everything falls on them. Right. So it's easier for them to pay a $400 abortion ticket than a $30,000 birth bill at a hospital. So of course I was, you know, encouraged to abort, but for some reason I just couldn't do it. And I ended up, you know, going through that pregnancy while incarcerated. And then when it came time to me giving birth, I was chained to a bed with a sheriff watching.
Whoa. Mm-hmm. And so did you get pregnant in prison, or you were pregnant when you went to prison?
No, I was already pregnant.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. It was bad timing. Good timing, though, because my daughter is truly a blessing.
Really?
Yes.
And so once you had the baby, you stayed in prison for a minute?
So once I had the baby, 24 hours after I gave birth to her, they gave her to my mother. And we know in America, they don't even take a puppy from a dog for at least 6 weeks.
Right.
So 24 hours after birth, she was given to my mother. I was sent back to an overcrowded prison, given a mat to sleep on the floor. And when she was 6 months old, my mother died of a massive heart attack, and she went to my grandmother. And when she was 12 months old, my grandmother died of a massive heart attack, and she went to my aunt. And when she was 18 months old, I was released, and I came home. And today, she is in her 3rd year at MIT after winning the Harvard International Debate Championship.
Amazing. And so are you guys close?
Of course. I raised her completely throughout the rest of the tenure of her life. She's my baby. And I think with her, because she was my youngest, by the time I had experienced all of that stuff in prison, I was a totally different person. So she definitely got the best of me.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
And so the Great White Hope pardoned you, Donald Trump.
Him, the racist.
I know.
Pardon an old, poor little black woman like me so I can reclaim my life and start over again. Not only did he give me a full and unconditional pardon, but he also made it illegal for them to chain women to the bed during childbirth. And then he passed the First Step Act. And then I walked in a list of 100 names of people that needed to be freed, and he freed several of those people before he left office. And these people are trying to convince me that I'm supposed to vote for the black woman who locked everybody up instead of the white man who freed everybody.
What a mess.
A mess.
When they call Donald Trump a racist, what do you think about that?
I feel like that's the kind of racism we need.
Yeah.
If we have to deal with racists, because one of the things I learned from working with, Robert F. Kennedy was that, racism is something we're never gonna get rid of, okay? It's just something that's gonna always be there. But, we do business with racists all the time. I think Black America is looking for some type of emotional attachment to the United States when really it needs to be a business attachment, because when you go get your nails done at the Asian salon, they don't like you. They talking about you. When you go get gas at the Indian-owned gas station in your communities, they don't like you. They're talking, but you're still giving them your money. And so for this man who they claim is such a racist, who not only gave me a fresh start, gave Kwame Kilpatrick a fresh start, gave Alice Marie Johnson a fresh start, pardoned Kodak Black, Lil Wayne, housed Jennifer Hudson, when her family was murdered, went to court with Michael Jackson every single day, gave $1 million to Jesse Jackson to start the Rainbow Push Coalition, and I don't see him, showing up to the DNC in Chicago with an abortion Hot Wheels bus offering black women abortion. So if I have to deal with racism, give me the racism that's gonna let jail.
That's right. What amazing.
I'm just being honest.
When you heard that Donald Trump the Great White Hope was pardoning you and you were getting out of. Were you expecting that? How did you find that out, and how did he come to know you as this?
I actually was, that's a two-part question.
Yeah.
How he came to know me, if we back up a little bit, which is what this book is about, King Trump Kennedy.
And we're going to be showing you, telling you about this book in a minute.
When I got out of prison, and I had lost my mother and grandmother, I was homeless and had nowhere to go.
Right.
So I ended up at a Women and Children's Crisis Center looking for help, and the woman that was behind the desk that day was King.
Oh, okay.
And from that day, I had worked with her. She'd given me a job, and I had been up under her wing for like the last 15 years working with her and her family on community restoration. And of course, she already had a relationship with Trump.
Right.
So when Trump's initiative was criminal justice reform, she asked me if I would go in and share my story with him. And at first, I wasn't going to go because I thought he was a racist. But I prayed about it, and I had to take myself out of my emotions, and I had to realize that this man had the key to help so many people that I had left behind. And if I could just step out of my emotions for a moment and go share my story with this man, you know, maybe God would touch his heart and something change could really happen. And that's exactly what happened. And I don't regret one moment of it.
So were you already out of jail when he pardoned you?
Yeah, I had been released since 2005, so my pardon was well-deserved. I had done a lot of community service work, had gone back to school, got my bachelor's in psychology, completely turned my life around, started my own publishing company, started a nonprofit organization to give back to the community. So it wasn't a pardon of favor, it was a pardon that was well-deserved.
Oh, I got you. And so for the record, you are the goddaughter to Alveda King.
I am.
The niece of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I am.
Amazing. Do you have anger?
Probably.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
You have anger?
And love and happiness and joy. I experience
you can't
all
have both.
emotions. I can have them all,
So,
depending on the moment.
Why don't you, and why are you holding on to anger? Why don't you drop anger?
I'm not angry right now. You could make me angry, though.
But why not let anger go and be free of anger?
I'm free of anger
You're
in
a
this
Christian,
moment.
right?
I'm free of anger in this moment. Even Jesus got upset. He went in flipping tables. He said, "You have turned my Father's house into a house of thieves." It's okay to be angry. He said, "Be angry, yet not sin." That's what the word says.
Do you? So you believe that Jesus had the same anger that human beings have? The emotional anger?
I don't know what he had. I'm based off of the word. If we're talking about what's in Scripture, right?
Right.
So I think that anger is an emotion, and no, you shouldn't hold on to it. But again, it depends on the moment.
Have you? So do you believe it's possible to live an angry-free life?
In a moment.
No, period.
I mean, it depends.
Because God said that Christ said that anyone that has anger is a murderer, and that we should not trust an angry person. So if he's against it, he said that he does not give you the spirit of anger, right? And so if he's against it, why do human beings think that it's okay to have it?
I mean, because we're not living in heaven right now.
Why not?
Satan is the ruler of this world.
Right.
Right? Okay,
yeah.
These soft, what would Jesus do, turn the cheek Christians, that's over with. Like, we out here really slaying demons right now, okay? We are dealing with, Trump has had 3 assassination attempts on his life. My pregnancy home, the first one that we had, was burnt down to the ground, okay?
Why?
This is not a day and out. Ask Antifa, somebody, I didn't do it.
Oh, they never did catch the people that did it?
No, but what I'm saying is we're not in a day or age where we can just turn the other cheek. Now, if y'all want to do that, that's fine, right?
Right.
And we see where that has gotten us, right? But we're in the middle of a real spiritual battle right now. And this one is not for the meek and the mild. And if I'm wrong for saying that, then God, please correct me. But that ain't who he called me to be during this season.
All right. I have so much I want to talk to you about, but let me ask, you don't believe that you can live in the kingdom of heaven now?
I don't believe that I am living in the kingdom of heaven now.
Do you believe it's possible?
When I pass, possibly. But right now, in this existence, in this reality that we're living in, where these people are getting ready to vote on November 5th to kill babies, this is not heaven. And this is not the one that I read about in the book, right?
And so you don't believe that you can live in the kingdom of heaven right now? Or do you
Well, the
believe you have
word
to wait
says
until
to
you
be
die?
absent from the body is to be present with Christ.
Right.
I'm still in the body.
And so you don't believe it's possible to live in the kingdom of heaven right now?
I believe it's possible to ascend. I believe it's possible to be divinely connected. But am I living there right now? No, I'm not.
What do you mean by you believe it's possible to ascend? What does that mean?
Well, you could have dreams and you could have visions, okay? And you could experience, okay, heaven, and you could experience those places. But as far as living there, am I living in heaven right now? I would say no.
And do you believe it's possible to live in the kingdom of heaven right now?
I think you asked me that about 8 times, and I said no.
And why don't you believe that?
Because it's not a reality.
But God said the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now, and that we can live in the kingdom of heaven while we live.
Well, if this is heaven, and they cutting little boys' dicks off and killing babies all the way up until full term, then what do we expect after this?
Where is the kingdom?
You tell me.
You don't know where it is?
Because it ain't here.
But it is here, and it's in you. It's above, too. But it's inside. The kingdom of heaven is within, right?
Okay.
And then when we return to the Father, we enter that kingdom, and we can live that life right now before we die. We don't have to wait. Matter of fact, there's no such thing as death anyway, except for the ego death.
Okay, death to the flesh.
Right.
Right.
It's not death to the flesh, it's death to the ego. Mm-hmm. The flesh is going back to death, but we'll get into all that later.
Okay.
But that's interesting, right?
I mean, I hear you.
It's a food for thought.
Not really.
It's just something to smoke on.
It ain't clicking.
Oh, it's not?
It ain't clicking. It's not, but I'll study it.
Okay.
Okay.
What's important to you?
Saving babies.
Saving babies from abortions?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you do in your organization, right?
Yep.
And why is that so important to you?
Because I believe that God has a purpose for every life that he creates. And I believe that someone has to be a voice for the unborn. And I believe that every abortion is a tragedy. And I'm educated to understand that abortion is Black genocide. I'm aware of the fact that 20 million Black lives have been aborted since the passing of Roe v. Wade. I'm also educated on the fact that Roe v. Wade was legalized off of a lie. Norma stating that she was raped by 4 Black men. That never happened. I'm also educated on the fact that...
She apologized. She came back later, right? And said she was wrong about it.
She did.
Yeah.
She also never had an abortion. I'm also educated on the fact that they have strategically placed 80% of their abortion clinics in Black communities while there are no abortion clinics at the border.
Yeah.
And
Margaret
I believe
Sanger started this whole thing.
And we are asleep, and God has blessed me to be able to intervene in the lives of over 80 babies to this day that I've saved, and those babies are going to grow up and have babies. And we're not just saving babies, we're saving bloodlines, we're saving entire generations. And I think that if Satan had been successful in taking me out, then I wouldn't even been here to save those 80. So I think that every life has value and every life has a purpose. And that is my purpose, to bring back the value of life in the Black community.
And when you say that, do you work with all women with their abortion, or predominantly Black?
I work with all women, and I believe that all life matters. However, if they can specifically target Black women for abortion, then I can specifically target Black women for life.
Right. And so when you say you saved the lives of the babies, meaning that these women had considered having abortion, but they met you and they heard about you and they changed their mind. What's the two things? What's the reason they decided to do it, and why did they change their mind?
Well, a lot of women are having abortions simply because they feel like they don't have support. It's not about rape or incest. Rape or incest is only 1% of abortion. A lot of women feel like they don't have support, they don't have family support, they don't have anywhere to go, they don't have the necessary training or education that they need in order to get a job, to be financially stable, to take care of a child. And these are things that can be addressed, and these are things that can be worked out. And I know this because of my own story. When I left prison and had to raise my children and start all over again, but I was able to do it. And now I'm able to see the fruit of my labor. Now I'm able to see you know, the blessing that the enemy wanted to trick me to abort. And I think that at the end of the day, like, why are we encouraging women to abort because of poverty?
And so some of the women who have had abortion, I mean, didn't have the abortion after, so you helping them. Do you know if any of them had abortion later?
I don't. I don't think
the once you help them, you don't see them anymore?
No, I do. I actually keep in touch with a lot of them.
Oh, okay.
I'm a godmother to all of my babies. So some of my babies are going on 12, 13, 14 years old. I've been doing this work for a very long time. And it's about the mindset, helping them restore the value of life, right? Letting the mother know that it is a baby. It's not a clump of cells, and that our children are a blessing, right? Because for some reason now, in this current atmosphere, if you talk about somebody being pregnant or they're in school or whatever, everybody has an excuse to abort the baby.
Yeah.
And that's just not an era that I'm from. And I just believe that the enemy is tricking a lot of these women into aborting their blessings. Like, my children have grown up to be blessings to me, not burdens.
I know that there's so-called civil rights leaders. They don't seem to care about the abortion issue when they're supposed to be the leaders, and they're not, but they're supposed to be the leaders of the blacks. You know, they're part of the so-called civil rights movement, all that. Why don't they care about abortion? They know that Margaret Sanger...
Because abortion is convenient, and they ain't no better than the KKK. Like, I cannot understand how you are sitting up here blaming white people for racism, but you can't wait to go abort your own black baby.
Right.
You are the creators of black life. You're demanding that everybody value black life except the black people that create it. It's an absolute shame, and it's hypocritical, and it's something to laugh at. And I think that's been one of the biggest realizations for me, and, you know, leaving the Democrat Party, which the majority of my family is involved in, coming over to the Republican Party, and then going over into the independent side. But March for Life, like, every time I attended a March for Life, it was one of the most beautiful, painful experiences that I've ever had. Because I always have to answer for black people. Because me and my godmom and maybe one or two other people, there are only 4 black people standing in a whole sea of nearly 30,000 white people fighting for their race, fighting for their children. And they're asking me, where is everybody at? Like, why don't they care? Y'all don't care about your babies. You don't care about your future. So I'm on this side because I do a lot of work with the Republicans, and my work is to advocate for disadvantaged communities that I come from. And on this side, I'm hearing them ask those questions about why we don't value black life. And then on this side, I'm hearing them tell me that Republicans are racist. Well, you're blaming them for racism, but you don't value black life either. And I mean, it's just like, I just think black life just doesn't have any value on any side.
What do you say when they ask you, where are the blacks? You know, why don't we have more blacks in these rallies? What do you say? Why,
it's hurtful. I mean, oftentimes it brings me to tears, to be honest with you, because I'm standing on this side and I'm with 30,000 white people, and then I look on that side and it's 30,000 black people on that side fighting against us.
Right.
And I'm like, when was this ever a part of our civil rights? Like, how do we go from fighting to be free to fighting to kill our own children for convenience and blaming white people? So y'all killing your babies because white people are racist.
Why is it that way? You're right about it. Why is that?
Because I think it reminds me a lot of slavery. Like, we had to fight to get slavery overturned. It was once ruled. They didn't look at us as being completely human. And I think that with the babies and the abortion issue, it's just a miseducation. They said it was a clump of cells. It's not a baby. You know what I'm saying? I think that the truth needs to be told. I think that anybody considering abortion should be forced to watch the abortion procedure before. We just need to restore value to life. And these women, unfortunately, have been liberated with this choice. They want to be so free. Oh, women's rights. Yeah. But, like, don't you have to be born to become a woman, right? Like, how are you voting for the women's rights that execute the women of tomorrow? And because black people are so emotional. They're more concerned with the 7 men taking away their right to kill their children than they are with the 7 white Supreme Court men that gave them the right to kill their children. And they're just caught up in this word of choice, not even understanding that they're choosing death for our own race, for our own bloodlines, for our own children, and it has to stop.
I mentioned earlier, I'm from Alabama. I grew up in Alabama on a plantation down there in Alabama. And I remember before the civil rights movement ever started, black people were independent thinkers. They had no black leaders. Even the black preacher, he just can preach the Bible, but he didn't tell them how to think. The parents was the example for the children, my grandparents, my parents. And there was no such thing as far as I know, black leaders. But then an abortion was unheard of. Mm-hmm. Even if a woman got pregnant and she was not married, she would have to go out of town somewhere.
Right.
And you'd be like, where is her? Oh, no, she out of town. Come back with a baby because it was such an embarrassment to be pregnant. Then the civil rights movement started, which I think was the worst thing that ever happened to the blacks, other than abortion, the civil rights movement, because I noticed that when that whole thing started, not all, but most of the black people stopped thinking for themselves and they started following the ideas of the so-called civil rights leaders. Do you think it was a mistake for the blacks to follow the so-called leaders?
I can't necessarily say that it's a mistake, because the way that I look at things now, I think that all these fights that they have are necessary, because like you were asking me earlier about, do I help all babies? Of course I help all babies, but let's just talk about this for a minute. When it comes to issues of medical apartheid, right, we know that there has been a target on the black community, even with this issue that we're dealing with right now in this black maternal health crisis, right? Like all of a sudden, black women are dying from giving birth to their children, which is the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. It's almost like saying all the black cows are dying or all the black horses are dying. Like you telling me I'm dying from the most natural thing, right? Every person is here because they were birthed. And so now we have this target on black women, which is this black maternal health crisis, and we have to fight back, right? Because here's the thing, if black women are dying, like if you're telling me that I watched my grandmother birth 10 children in a barn with no doctor, no complications to none of that.
Midwives, right?
Right. Then now you telling me that black women dying from giving birth to one in the hospital after we just watched Octomom pop out 8 babies at one time with no complications. So then what that tells me is that if black women are dying at these alarming rates, that it's intentional. It's definitely not natural. Because if black women are just dying naturally from giving birth, then I expect to see all the damn black dogs dying, the black cats, the black cows, the black pig. It just, when we go back to the common sense that God gave us, it does not make sense. So some of these fights are necessary because unfortunately, you know, people of darker color skin are being systemically targeted for some things, which we know.
And so do you think that it was a mistake for the blacks to start listening and following the so-called civil rights leaders?
Well, if I take what they're fighting for now, I have to 100% agree with you, because our civil rights movement now is no longer about what I was taught it was about. I was taught it was about our freedom, it was about equality. Right, now what it's about LGBTQ, and it's about abortion, right? These things have nothing to do with what they were originally fighting for. They were fighting against segregation. They were fighting against discrimination. They were fighting for equal treatment. They were not fighting to cut their sons off or fucking abort their children. America has got...
Can we be saying that on the show?
I don't know. Y'all can cut it. But what I'm saying is y'all can bleep it or whatever. But we have to be honest. The civil rights movement of today is not what it was 30, 40 years ago. The Democrat Party of today is not what it was 30, 40 years ago. The laws of today are not what they were 30, 40 years ago. And I think my biggest concern is that the black community as a whole is more focused on racism than anything else. And while we are focused on a racist or who's a racist, like it even damn matters. Our children are under attack.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Wow, great interview. Very powerful guest. This woman, she indeed is really strong. And this is an alpha woman, man. And I want also the men here, I want you also to be alphas, man. See, the moral of the story here is that no matter how bad, how things are, difficult things are, there's always a light at the end of every tunnel, provided you keep being determined and keep believing in yourself and believing in God. You can see how she turned her life around. Thank God to some agents like, Agent Trump and people who imparted and some mentors that she had that turned her life around. So thank God for that. And the interview was generally very, relaxing and very educative. We learned a lot about her version of racism and what she thinks about racism and other important stuff that's affecting the black community. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button. I keep saying that. Support your boys. Subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Like this video, and also, if you can, also share it out. Like I said earlier, I think, did I say that in the first time? No, if I didn't say that, I'm going to drop the link just to remind you. If you want to watch, I advise you to watch the full video, so I'll drop the link in the description so you can click on it and watch the full video. Enjoy yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, my name remains Roland. God bless you.